The day's been actually pretty crazy because I had to work actually like I was at work like a regular work week. I had one of my clients had a death in his family, so I had to have a meeting because he's going to be out of town all week and like with his staff and it was like a 2 hour meeting. So just to kind of go through everything to cover the week while he's gone. So it was a little he called me first thing this morning asking me if I was available and I was kind of like, what's going on? So anyway, and I ended up working and then I just finished talking to my mom and blah blah blah. So how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I got up very early this morning to do some errands. And so I had a plan and I had a little, written out to-do list. And so I was able to get a lot of that stuff done.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I wanted to, you and I had a conversation the other day about a multitude of things, but we primarily talked about getting old, getting older, and um, and then we were getting ready to segue into dating, and I asked you to pause that conversation because I thought it would be great to record this and upload it onto my YouTube channel. Simply because a part of my mission that I've never even talked about is like, I don't know that people are black gay men like yourself and me um, are visible, meaning that because we're so fully assimilated, and I'm just using that word because that's how I feel about myself, that I think we fly under the radar. Like I think we're openly gay men, but I don't know, like it's not something that we wear on our sleeves or, feel the need to discuss or even, you know, shout from the rooftops. So a lot of times I think we fly under the radar because we're just living our lives in our professional careers, paying our mortgages, just living and not really, um, I don't know, I'll just leave it at we're just living. So, um, just to kind of preface this conversation for everybody that's watching, Lance is one of my oldest friends. We've known each other a long time. I'll just say that. Um, Lance lives in New York, and I met Lance when I lived in New York, and we met through a mutual friend who has passed away or he's died a few years ago. And prior to him dying, he and I had fallen out of favor. We weren't friends any longer, but Lance and I have always maintained a friendship. And one of the things that I appreciate about Lance is that we can go months without speaking and we will literally like call each other and pick up right where we left off. And it's one of the beauties of our friendship just because, you get just bogged down in the mundane activities of life and it's not indicative of your love for someone else. It's just really just you're living your life. And and I think Lance and I have that mutual understanding and mutual respect for each other as well as our friendship. And I think that's why we've always just been able to pick right up where we left off. Um, so the other thing about Lance and I, we both are Geminis. And it's funny because when I was thinking about this conversation earlier, I was thinking about even when I lived in New York, because I mentioned this to you the other day. Lance used to work in the CBS building and he worked for a restaurant called China Grill. I don't even know if it's still there. Um, and some days I would just stop by Lance's office and wait for him to come out because I knew what time he got off and he would come out and he and I would just go hang out. And I was thinking about that in the way that it really is similar to how our friendship is today because I would just be standing out there waiting and some days you come out and we just pick up and go off and hang out in the village or whatever, and that's really kind of how our friendship always been if you think about it.
Mhm.
um, and coincidentally, like oddly, I don't know if I ever shared with you, one day I was waiting for you and I was sitting out like on the outer part close to whatever the cross street was. Um, it might have been 57th. And Liza Minnelli was walking into China Grill, and I just kind of, my mouth dropped. I was like, that's Liza Minnelli. And so then shortly thereafter, Lance came out. Um, the other thing I'll say about this before we get into this is that Lance and I typically have, we've always been be very honest. We've always had the capability of being very honest with each other. And we talk about everything. Like, I don't think there's anything that we don't really discuss, like from family issues to buying houses to selling, like everything we life we just talk about. Would you agree? Yes.
Yeah, no. I would agree. I think, as I said to you yesterday, we've managed to create a mutual, safe space of respect, which
Yeah.
allows us to just engage and so forth.
Yeah. So you wanted to, before we got off the phone and and I said, let's record this, and you agreed. I said, you wanted to talk about what it's been like dating. And I think you were specifically talking about it as it relates to us getting older. Yes?
Yeah. I was just starting. I was talking about the lifespan in regard to the challenges that we sort of kind of, or certainly for myself, I'll speak from my perspective in regard to going through the mundane of life, and trying to understand what that means, and sometimes walking away with still not having an understanding, and life still going on. And so, I think the point that you raised a little earlier is that we are no longer out in an environment in which we are engaging with others.
Yeah.
We are doing it either, through social media, or we're doing it through certainly telephone or emails or text and so forth. And so we are not actively out there and engaged, which sort of kind of limits, the opportunity to meet others,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think that is interesting. And then also, being at this phase in your life in regard to understanding more about yourself and about what you're willing to, accept or not accept, or the type of happiness that you are looking for, or someone that sort of kind of compliments you. I think, while you have a little bit more clarity in regard to that, I think it's a little bit more difficult in regard to, you have a very short, fuse, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
your tolerance level is certainly much lower than it was before.
Because it's easy to just say, well, I've done all of this by myself. Like, so if you can't like integrate into my life and make it complementary or, add, or, I definitely don't want you subtracting, but I want you to be an additive. What would be the point? Like, why, because I can find companionship here with you or, with other friends that I have. So why am I compromising? I guess I don't even know if it's a compromise. Like it's like it feels more like a burden to me sometimes. Like particularly when I'm having disagreements and I find myself saying, like what the fuck? Why are you here? Like what is the point of this? Like, I
Right.
mean,
You almost feel like it's I've certainly been in this, and meeting someone, and while you enjoy their company, you also like the solitude of being by yourself.
yeah,
And when it begins to feel like, um that you have to plan to get together,
yeah,
and it's just not something that organically happens, and you are thinking about, the type of conversations you're going to have, in order to keep each other entertained and engaged, or certainly what you're going to do, in regard to planning. You almost think to yourself, why am I going through this? Why?
right.
Like, I can just go to movies by myself and have a great time.
And I can sit at a restaurant bar
Right.
and meet strangers and have a good time, other than sitting here, you know, arguing or being tense or even not talking sometimes. It's like, okay. I mean, and I'm fine with the silence, but if it's tension, I'm just kind of like, you can go. Like, I mean, I'm cool by myself.
Right.
So,
Right.
um,
I think, to your point, you're right. It's it's again asking yourself, why are you sitting here? Why are you engaging with this individual? What is it that you like about the individual? Have you been able to, what is the compatibility? And
Right.
as you embark on that compatibility, does it seem like a task that you're just sort of kind of checking off? Or again, is it organically? Is it something
Yeah.
that it's just happening and you just really enjoy spending time with someone? I was thinking the other day with someone, it's interesting. I had a conversation with someone who I dated, and they talked about something that I had did in regard to, there was it was really bad weather. And again, this is really early in my life, and sometimes in regard to that puppy love that you have. And so it was a snowstorm. And because I spent so much time with the individual and I really enjoyed, hanging out with him, and there are moments when you get off of work and all you can think about is what you're going to do,
Right.
and you're going to go stop at this house and so forth. And so I remember there was this snowstorm. There was no transit running, and the individual lived, quite away from me, but in walking distance. It would take me some time to get there, and even more time if it was snow. But because I was just so happy and eager and just giddy about wanting to spend time with this individual, I walked. Now, it may have taken me about an hour and a half to get to their place, but of course, when I got there, and it's just about being in company and companionship, and just sitting there watching television, and just the sheer enjoyment of
Right.
that. But most recently, I connected with the individual, and we were just talking, and he said, "Oh, I remember the time when you came, and you
I think
walked
I know who you're speaking of, but
the snow." And I said, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "Yeah, yeah, no, I remember that time." And I said, "Yeah, I couldn't see myself doing something like that now." And so I think that it's that we are going through and
yeah,
discovering more about ourselves
yeah.
versus when we were younger, where we just did things from impulse and from emotion and from enjoyment, and really not reflecting on, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this bringing me some sort of kind of long period of happiness? Is it building towards something?
But it also is like what we were discussing about the whole getting older thing, about it's that being in the moment and allowing the moment to just be whatever it's going to be. Like I think that the reason you enjoyed it so much back then was because you didn't really give it a lot of thought. I would imagine you probably just were like, I want to see him. It's
Mhm.
snowing. It's a nice day to be holed up together. Like, and that I'm gonna make it happen. Like, whatever the case may be. And so now, because we are so methodical, and for me in particular, I am very list oriented. Like, I have post-its all on my desk with little lists and check marks and all that stuff. It's like, so when someone comes along and disrupts that, it's like, I'm not doing that. No. So,
I said that to you. I'm at this place in my life where, I sort of kind of when I'm in these situations, one is, no, I'm not doing that.
right,
And I've
yeah,
and I've come to be okay in saying that.
yeah.
And two,
But do you think too much so? Do you think that you've become too comfortable in saying, I'm not doing that?
oh, without a doubt. My mom said many years ago, and I don't believe I understood when she said it. And of course, it was one of those moments, and we were just in this heated debate. And obviously, your parents just say what they want to say, and you're like, aren't you listening to yourself? And I remember sort of kind of trying to provide my mother with a moment of reflection, or at least allow her to reflect. And she said to me, I'm at a place in my life and at this age where I can say what I want to say. And I really never understood that until I think now, and that is that you become more in tuned about what you are willing to tolerate, what you won't tolerate, what you want in your life, what you don't want in your life. And especially if you are someone who has worked very hard, and been somewhat successful in regard to being able to have a good life.
Yeah,
And so to your point, I think what you're looking, or at least what I'm looking for, is somebody who is going to certainly add to that. I often, when I've been doing some dating and I hear these stories from individuals and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you went through that? Okay, like that aha moment should have happened like weeks and weeks and months. And it's like, wait a minute, how did you? And so for me, I think that there's this guard up that I have, like, I'm not even gonna allow myself to go there. Like there won't be this derail of
No,
the train for me.
yeah, it's a struggle though, like because for me, and this is I don't know if this is good or bad, but I struggle with giving someone the benefit of the doubt, right? Because I kind of feel like the minute I say I'm not dealing with this any longer, like we might it might be the same minute we might turn a corner. And I my eyes light up and go, "Oh, there you are. Okay, now I'm connecting to you." So, and I don't want to like shoot myself in the foot just because you or just because like whatever the reason may be, whatever the reason is we're not connecting, I don't want to be dismissive of that. And that's a really hard thing to balance because I do wonder um in retrospect, like, have I thrown all these things away? Like, have I just been so I don't know, I caught up in my own stuff or looking for the fantasy or the romance or because there's some sort of pragmatism that exists in relationships and you have to be smart and you have to it's just too many variables at play that frustrate me sometimes and I'm kind of like, you know what, I just don't. I'll give you an example. So yesterday I was in the grocery store and there was a guy, and so he was standing way back from the cashier line, and I didn't know if he was in line or not, so I didn't want to just jump in front of him. So I said, "Are you in line?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm in line. I'm waiting. I'm just allowing people to pass through." And I was like, "Oh, okay, nice." And so I kind of smiled at him, and then when the line moved forward, he moved up, and then I moved up, so there was enough space for people behind to pass through. So he turned and he put his side and he was reading a magazine. And I thought that was a little weird. But then he looked up at me and he smiled again. And I was like, okay, like, are you flirting with me? Like, because this can happen. So, because he was cute, like, he was a nice looking guy. He was white, but he was a nice looking guy and totally not my type, like blonde hair, that kind of guy. And he was flirting with me to the point when he left, he turned like when he finished his transaction, he turned around and was like, he said bye or something to me, and I was kind of like, all right, well maybe he'll be in the parking lot when I get out. So when I got out in the parking lot, he wasn't there, and I kind of was like, was I and I drove home and I thought to myself like, was I supposed to say something more? Was I supposed to do something with that? Like, and I find myself thinking that a lot with relationships that I have just kind of discarded. Like, was I supposed to do something more? Was I supposed to show up differently? Just because I'm always in my head about this stuff. And I know, because you and I have similar thought processes, I think you are too. And I don't know if we've never talked about that, but I'm curious about your thoughts about it.
So for me, I sometimes I feel like it goes over my head,
Mm,
like a lot of times. And I wouldn't I would say as I've gotten older, it goes over my head. And then I like you've done, I'll get in my vehicle and begin to drive and I'm like, was what
yes.
was that? Just like was that? And I'm like God, like what is up with you? I'm thinking to myself like where did this sort of kind of change in your head?
Yeah.
And I think, it's because again, because our circles are somewhat small now.
Yeah.
And so, and part of it is maybe we're rusty, we're rusty, or maybe we just have a lot going on in our lives, and so
I think it's more so that than rusty. Like, cause I
okay.
don't. I think we just
Sometimes I
have.
feel it's rusty. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, and to your point, I was in the train station about a week ago, and same thing. God looked up at me, smiled, and you clearly see, it wasn't a smile of like acknowledgement,
Right.
and I obviously I smiled, but I continued walking. But sometimes I wonder, was that the moment that you're to stop and say, hey, and what do you say?
What
You
do
know,
you say?
right. And
I
what do
mean,
you
because
say?
it's so ambiguous and it's so like, and we're not from this generation that's behind us where they're just like, so what's up? Or, like, are you down? However they talk, I don't even know. Like, we are from a fully assimilated where you might get punched in your fucking face,
Right,
just
right,
running up on some dude. Like,
right.
I don't, I don't know what to say. It's a weird kind of feeling. Um, yeah, and particularly like when you're not in a place where you really know what's going on. You know, yeah, I don't know. So I kind of walked away from that thinking like, if it's meant to be, like I'll run into him again, um, and
But
we'll
if
see.
but if you think about it, and often I do, is how many times have you said that to yourself?
A lot, a
And so
lot.
it's still, again, I think that there's no remedy to it in the sense
No,
of what you should do. And my thinking is that, if I'm being polite and respectful and acknowledging somebody, then at least I've done the right thing, and
right.
that I haven't taken any actions to misinterpret, sort of kind of what I may be thinking or what this person's intent is and so forth. And so that's why I tend to keep it there. And to your point, I probably miss a lot of those moments.
Well, and I think I'm making that point because the whole we started this because we're talking about dating and how it relates to us getting older and the fear of being by yourself and not having someone like in the event something happens or like if I have a stroke in the middle of the night, what am I supposed to do? Like I'm here alone. I and so not to say that if I date someone that they may be helpless and be clueless and not know what to do either, but at least there is someone here. Um, and that's not going to change unless I am more present, I guess. I don't even know what the solution is,
Mhm.
or more willing to um, engage at a different level or different in a different way.
Right.
Um, and I don't know what that looks like or feels like because I think because I'm so list oriented and I'm so methodical about how I spend my day, how I spend my time. And like I said, like when something comes along to disrupt that, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. And I'm out of sorts. And I feel like a fish out of water, so it catches me off guard. I think the reason I was more present with the guy in the grocery store was because yesterday, like you, I only had one call at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I really wasn't thinking about work. I didn't have any checklist until the stuff I needed to do on Monday. So I was just kind of goofing off, like buying the stuff in the grocery store that I wanted to make for the weekend and really just thinking about nothing. And it allowed me to be present and smile and, talk to him. Because we did talk
Mhm.
like for
Mhm.
however long we spent in line. Um,
It's so interesting that, and you and I have talked about this, in my personal life, I'm introvert. And so
yeah,
that just adds another dimension to this.
yeah,
And so when you hear people say, as we were talking about this subject and talking about, about meeting and about dating and what dating means and companionship and moving through the lifespan, oftentimes you'll hear people say, well, you got to put yourself out there, put yourself out there, put yourself out in these environments and these situations, and not understanding, well, wait a minute, I still carry all these complexities with
That's
myself
right. Yeah.
as I navigate these environments and so
And
forth.
are you compromise? Like, are you not being your authentic? Because if I put myself out there, then I'm not really being myself. Like, I'm not a put myself out there kind of person. I'm more of a
Right,
reserve, keep my cards to my chest kind of person.
right, right.
So, and then, somebody, if you start dating this person, they may be like, well, what happened to the person I met? Well, I was putting myself out there to meet you.
Right, right. This is who I showed up and presented myself to be. You're right. In our professional lives, and certainly for as I can think about myself, is you know, it's easy for me to get out and circle in a room and meet people
Yeah,
and to be engaging and to be inquisitive and to, just this introvert just is not present.
right.
There's just something that just happens when I am just in my personal life, certainly in a social setting, especially with people that I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh, it takes a little bit of warming up for myself
yeah.
to sort of kind of adjust and allow myself to be okay with that.
Well,
Uh,
and can I say something? Because even on here, you're a lot more reserved than you are when we are on the phone. Like
yeah,
you're being a lot more buttoned up because you are very like I don't think that your sense of humor, and this isn't a bad thing because I'm the same way, but your sense of humor, like we laugh and joke all the time on the phone, and it's I don't know that people it's going to be conveyed here. Like I know that side of you, so because I've known you for 30 plus years, but I don't know that everybody knows that side of you, and you don't allow people because I've been to parties with you. You're very quiet when someone is like in talking to you or me or everybody. Like you're very like me a little bit in the sense that you're trying to figure them out first. Um, and
right.
there's not, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because I have a lot of those same qualities. Like I'm definitely not the same person when you initially meet me that I am the same person after knowing me, even a few months, you'll see a different side of me. I try to be a little bit more intentional with allowing people initially to see all sides of me because I don't want people to think that that I take myself too seriously. Because I mean, I clearly not.
No,
Um,
well, let me just say, sometimes I know that I take myself too seriously.
I
Um,
don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, you have a lot of responsibilities on your plate, like with your job, and so I think that there's a balance in everything. Like I think that taking yourself too seriously in the right place in the right time, you know, I think that's great. But I also feel like sometimes, even in the right place in the right time, the mood needs to be lightened. And I often, even when I'm in meetings with whoever, I still crack jokes because like it's like I don't care your title. Like I'm still gonna be me. Uh,
right, right, right. I
and I
think that
think it's disarming sometimes for people.
it is, and you're right. For me, it takes me certainly some time to get used to people, and certainly let them in. I think I am always concerned about how people see me, which is really odd when you would think that here I'm trying to sort of kind of control sort of what I say and my process of thinking and trying to measure how I'm getting to know this individual or people around me and so forth. And so in my head, as I'm having these encounters, in my head, what I'm thinking is, how do these people see me? And not really being, cognizant that sometimes it could come off as being somewhat aloof, or
Yeah,
sometimes it can be, a little disconnected, or I've heard shady and all these many different things, and
But
oftentimes,
you are shady. I
no, I'm
mean,
not shady. I just speak my mind. But for me, that's just always was going on in my head.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and so it makes it again when I talked about the complexities. I'm always fascinated when I come across individuals and they're just able to just be out there and just let themselves loose.
same
And
here.
yeah, so
Like Eric is a good example. Like he was a really good example of that because
Mhm.
he did not care what anyone thought.
Right,
And
right.
I was fascinated by that. I admired that about him. Like he could walk into any room, did not care how he was dressed, and talk to anyone and
Mhm.
be his true authentic self. I mean, like I met so just so people know, Eric is our mutual friend that passed away. Um, and I met Eric in Short Hills Mall, and Eric was what 6'3", and like this, like a twig, and he would walk through Short Hills Mall like he owned the place, and I always would just sit there in awe of that, like that was amazing to me, and he had such a light that he just I think people were attracted to.
Right. I think that, there are many qualities about his character that were just enjoyable, uplifting, just really resonated. Oftentimes, in our conversations, he was my biggest cheerleader when, either I had doubt and he would say, Mama, I know you can do this. Don't,
Yeah,
you got this. And so, there are times that I marveled at that because I think there were those qualities that I was probably missing in myself. And while I think back over the years how I've sort of kind of tried to allow myself to be more open and to be more honest with myself in regard to looking at those qualities and trying to work toward developing them, it is it's life, and it's a struggle that you go through in regard to trying to define yourself,
yeah,
as you try to navigate. And I think it becomes even more complicated when you become older.
it's true. It's true. I think for me, because those same things that you were saying that how people describe you were how people would describe me. And then I made a decision. Well, you know what? I didn't make the decision. I became more aware when I would walk into rooms. I could see the people that were deciding that that's who I was, that I was shady or stuck up or all of those things. And it became a challenge for me. Like it was almost like they were laying down the gauntlet and they were challenging me to be different. And so I decided to start allowing people, rather than keeping my cards to my chest, I decided to start allowing those people to see me differently, and see me as fun or silly because I am all those things. I just never allowed people to see that right off the bat just because I felt too exposed and I felt too uncomfortable with allowing people to see that side of me. And for me, like it's kind of worked. Um, but then it backfires too because then it almost allows people to get too familiar with me and I don't like that. Like it makes me it makes me angry when people that I don't know get too familiar with me too quickly because it's like wait, you don't know me. Like I am multifaceted. Like I got a lot of threads in me, and just because you saw this side of me does not mean that you can take license with that and just like run with it because that's not who I am. Like, we're friends, so I know you don't mean me any harm, but I also recognize that because I'm older and wiser, everybody's not doesn't have my best interest in mind. And they need to respect my boundaries. Um, and that's
Right. No, right. I agree with you. I think that there is, for me, I don't take too kindly to people being really comfortable with me unless I've sort of kind of opened up that door.
Yeah.
And so I'm always very cognizant about that, and also thinking, again, what is this person's intentions?
Yes.
Because again, I think you're going to come across people who are there to be in your life and cheer you on, and then there are others who just you have to sort of kind of figure out that they may be in a different place in their life than you are.
Yeah.
And so, and as I said, the big thing, it doesn't help as you're moving through the lifespan and your focus is on work and all these other different things, and so it is somewhat becomes rather structured, and it doesn't allow for these other opportunities to happen in regard to for you to engage with others and so forth. So
So
I just
what is your, do you have a plan?
um my plan is to go to the mall.
Okay.
That I
And
can get, that I can control. Um, I don't, Scott, for myself, what I've tried to do is the times that I have engaged with individuals, I've tried to be very selective and certainly make myself available and present when I'm in company. I At this point, I sort of kind of pick and choose what I want to do and what I don't want to do, because I think I've become more comfortable in spending time with myself.
yeah, same.
So I think that's what kind of why I said to the mall. You go to the mall, and in your head, you got that destination of where you're going. There's
Yeah.
no having to consider somebody else's, and so what do you want to do? And does that person like that? And all these different things. And so I think what I'm trying to do is to be more cognizant of that, and saying, when I am engaged with others, to just again organically just allow them to also be present and just go where it goes. You know.
So what about, maybe we should do something like, maybe like there should be something like I can introduce you to someone, or because one of the things I've discovered is that, because I don't really need anyone up under me 24/7. Like, I kind of like my space. I'm an only child. It's been so long since I've had a like full on relationship that I don't really know what that would look like. So I like the fact that I dated someone who actually lived in New York over the summer. And we were back and forth, and it was fine. It didn't work out because I don't think we have the same value system. And I'll just leave it at, we don't have the same value system. So, but one of the things I liked about it was the fact that I could have my space and he could have his space, and we could get together and do things, and that kind of worked for me. So I was thinking that maybe you and I should like maybe meet, introduce each other to someone.
I
Uh,
don't know anybody.
well, when you go to the mall, you might
when I
meet
when I
someone.
go to the mall. Are you busy?
Wait, but
uh,
so you were dating someone, yes? Like, well, I'm sorry, you weren't dating someone, but I
did I
remember,
meet somebody? I'm trying to think. Did I meet somebody? Maybe I did meet somebody.
but you were taking it really, really slowly. And I don't know what happened to him. Because you called me one day and you asked me what did I think about. He said something, and he thought it was weird, and I said that's not weird. Like, and I don't even remember what it was.
Right. Yes. So you have to help me with the context, and thank you very much. One of the downsides in regard to getting older is that you don't quickly remember these details.
Yeah, I know.
Um, and so yes, I do remember. So let me get to the outcome. The outcome is that I had to admit that this person was we just not on the same page, and we're
Yeah,
just not looking for the same thing. What was interesting about this individual is what I tried to do was, um, in my life, I've recognized that I have always attracted the same type of person.
yeah,
in regard to characteristics, either what they look like, and so for and it and th- while there has been enjoyment in regard to the duration of the relationship, it hasn't always worked out, and sometimes it has gone really bad, or sometimes it's just gotten to the end point of us just deciding to split off and so forth. And so I had a moment of clarity in regard to saying to myself, why is it that I continue to keep um this feels familiar, and why do I feel like I'm encountering the same type of individuals? And so I said to myself, this time was, I need to break the mold in regard to that. Don't have this fantasy up in your head in regard to what, this person should look like, or what they should
Yeah.
come with, or what their experiences should have been. And so this time I decided to break the mold, and say, let me just detour left in regard to just allowing somebody to show up and be present. And while it was enjoyable in regard to getting to know this individual, I realized that I had no attraction for him.
Oh, yeah.
And so whereas I tried to take attraction to some degree and not have it so at the forefront, but put it to the side and saying, let me really get to know
Get
this.
to know him. Right.
Let me
Yeah,
really
yeah,
get to know this individual. And
yeah.
I realized, while there were things about him that were different than me, and so to the point that you were saying, it was about the question about designer wear, about
Oh,
brand name, wear brand name, and so forth. And I'm at, if
yeah.
you remember, so I'm at a point in my life where, listen, you give me some two size two big jeans with some Converse, I'm good to go. It
Right.
doesn't convey anything in regard to what my financial portfolio looks like, or anything like that. I'm just all about being comfortable
Yeah.
and going with the
Right.
flow and so forth. Whereas this individual, was very, very in tuned in regard to how they wanted the world to see them.
Pretty
Um,
so.
yeah, and so and so it became a bit of a struggle in the
Yeah.
sense that here I'm walking down looking like just one of everybody in the mall, and we've got another individual who has just been shopping on Beverly Hills, and so it became a bit of a struggle because um, for me, when you begin to point those things out to me, or
Yeah.
you say, listen, if we're going to go to this event, here's what I'm looking for you to wear, or you can't wear that. Like, been there, did that, and I
Yeah.
think that was the point that you and I were talking about is,
Yeah.
uh, child, I did that. I did
Yes.
that.
In my heyday.
In my heyday, and I did it very well.
Right.
I'm just not in that same space. While I love, to go out shopping, and I can pick and choose what I want, and I'm blessed in that way. It's just not that important to me.
Right.
And so for me, as I said, besides getting to know him, I realized that this is where he was at in his phase of his life.
If I
And
remember, he's in our age group, yes?
oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that was the issue. Like, that was a point of contention for
Right,
me because it's
right.
like, well, wait, we're the same age. Like, and our value system is not representative of that. And there's nothing for people that are watching that like to wear head to toe designer. Great. Like, if
Hmm.
that's what you want, by
Knock
all
yourself out.
means,
Right,
like,
right.
and if you can afford it, even greater. But I, that's not your value system. That's not my value system. That's not even people in my immediate circle, our value system, just because we've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, like, we
Right,
found
right, right, right,
something
right,
else.
right, right. And I think that was one of the things, it took me some time to sort of kind of stand back and recognize that this is a really nice guy, but we just wasn't gelling. And if you're gonna look at me sideways because, I just sort of kind of look like I rolled up out the house, rather than really being very meticulous in regard to, what I should be wearing and so forth. It just wasn't working. And it's interesting because, I had to have a moment of sitting down with him, and did that. And I just said, I just don't think that you and I are interested in the same things. I think we enjoy each other's company. And I
Yeah.
think we have a good time getting together outside of, this.
Yeah.
But I just don't believe that, that there is this chemistry and this interest. And this was somebody who, it was, we were getting to know each other over, a span of maybe 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I remember.
And he got irate,
Oh,
he,
I was getting ready to ask, like,
oh
was
yeah, he
didn't
got
agree with that?
he got it was really interesting because, and as many people know, and you see this is, when it's at the end of something, that's when you get to see a different side of the individual.
Well, but
And
it actually confirms what you were thinking all along, because a mature adult would be able to, be introspective and sit down and just have the conversation rather than, like, what, I don't even understand the point of getting irate, because are you angry because he must have been angry because he thought you were being judgmental of him, or
no, I think that what he felt like, it was a waste of his time. He felt like,
wow. Well,
yeah, he said, listen,
that's kind of offensive though, because, like, if you're saying,
he felt that it was a waste of his time, and
but
said,
you were still, because I know you and I don't know, we've never talked about this, but I'm sure you were still open to being friends.
oh, without a doubt. And I talked about that. And I said, you are such an incredible guy.
Right.
I really enjoy spending time with you. And I want to continue to spend time with you. I just need to be upfront about what I'm feeling.
Right.
And for me, I think that that's the process in regard to, getting to know somebody. When I look back in my past, I rushed into everything. It's just the heyday of our youth.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
rushed into things.
yeah,
And so at this point in my life, what I want to be able to do is to sit back and understand, if I am in the company of somebody, I want to be able to say, like, why am I in the company of this person?
yes,
What do I really like about them?
yes,
What don't I like about them? And so certainly with this individual, I recognize that there were some things that just were not compatible with how, I operate, but there were other things that I just really enjoyed. And I like spending time with the individual. And so when I sat down and I, was very clear about sort of kind of what I was feeling, what I was thinking, and so forth. And yeah, he was just like, it's really interesting because there were these one-liners, the daggers just coming out in the conversation. And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna engage this. You know what? I'm trying to be open and honest about what I'm feeling, and I'm not even, going into everything and anything that has bothered me or not bothered
yeah,
me or
yeah.
chemistry. I'm just trying to find a way for us to detour. And I remember thinking to myself, and I said, maybe we can get together next weekend. There's a good movie coming out or something that I want to go see, or something. And he was just like, just not interested. And I thought to myself at the end of, when he left, I remember I text him. I can't remember which holiday it
Oh
was.
wait, were y'all face to face? You were
Oh,
face
we
to
are face to. Oh yeah, we're face to
Oh
face.
wow, okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, we are face to face. And sitting there and having this conversation, and it just didn't go well. It just did
Was
not.
I was
It just didn't
smiling
go.
because to know you, it, like, and to know how much growth you have, because the Lance that I used to know would have lit him up.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, like, but you know what? I think that that's where there is growth in the sense of,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
maturity. And, you know, I'm not afraid of conflict. I
No,
can sit here and I can
no,
have a difficult conversation. And I
yeah,
don't, and engaging in a difficult conversation does not mean that I have to be shady or mean,
yeah,
or
yeah,
have to, you know, listen. I can be shady and read with the best of them. It's just, for
yes.
me, I look at it and I think, what's the point? If
Well,
it's not
and
accomplishing,
how is this going to propel the situation
right,
forward? Like,
right,
because you're already pissed, and that's
right,
clear. So
right,
by me, like you throwing daggers at me, and for me to light your ass up, that's just gonna make you. That's gonna make the situation
right,
worse.
right. Yeah, yeah, right. In my head, all I'm saying to myself is, I'm gonna let you live. Okay,
Right,
I'm gonna let you live.
right, yeah.
I'm gonna give
It's
you this
really not
time.
that serious. Like for
Right.
you, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
wanting
like,
to be friends, and you're,
right,
telling him all the things you like about him, but it's just not working.
right.
And I think people take that so personally. Like, I mean, I will say, being on the receiving end of that, like it is something that stings, right? But at the end of the day, why would you want to fight for someone that doesn't want to be with you? Like, what is the point of that? Like, even if you felt like you were wasting your time, like, I don't even understand how you can say you are wasting your time when you are getting to know someone and you're having all these experiences. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because nothing tomorrow's not promised. So you you just were enjoying yourself in the moment.
Right, right. I think, you hit upon something, and that is, this defining, what does it mean to get to know somebody.
Yeah,
That's what this has taught me
yeah.
in regard to, defining. And I think it's important, certainly when you meet somebody, is at least now the learning lesson for me is to have a conversation about that. The other thing that I was just thinking about was when you were
Can I
saying
ask you
about
a
this.
question? Had you ever seen this side of him before? This irate?
No, not at all, not at all.
Wow. Okay.
Not at all, not at all. And so this was different. This was
Yeah.
definitely different. And I
So
was like,
he was
wow,
holding
okay.
back. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was like, wow, this is really different. But to the point, to something that you said about the sting, you're right, it's a sting.
Yeah.
But the importance is to step back if you are having this conversation with somebody, is to talk about that sting and to
Yeah.
talk about the disappointment or to talk
Right.
about, I had
In
this
a productive way.
expectation.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's how you begin to not only reconcile it for yourself,
Right.
but also if you are interested, if there was beyond the I just this person that is sitting from me and what they look like and my desire to sleep with them or my desire to have this relationship with them. If you just park that to the side and you say, okay, so what is it that I like about this individual? This forces you to do that in the sense of saying, let me talk about what I'm feeling,
Right.
and so forth. And so for me, as I said, I walked away with, again, with some clarity in regard to meeting individuals, is to define that. And the next thing was, to be more honest with myself in the sense that, if it's not working for you, it's not jiving for you, then you need to be honest with yourself about that. And the person sitting in front of you may not understand that.
But I
Um,
think you should give yourself some grace around that, because when you got there when you got there, right?
mhm,
Like you were honest with yourself, and as soon as you were honest with yourself, you were honest with him. So, I mean, I don't know that you always, because it's kind of like me with the turning of the corner thing. Like, you don't know that, like, until you know it. And so I think when you knew it, I'm assuming you shared it with him.
right, right, right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
I don't know that you can force yourself to get there and be honest with yourself when you are in the process of getting to know someone. I mean,
right.
really all you can do, right?
It's a struggle, and it's something I think I have struggled with, and taking my time. And sometimes your time may not be on the same time frame as somebody else, and so,
But
uh,
right there, that's when it's not, because we're missing each other automatically.
right, right, yeah. So it was sad, and as I said, nice guy.
You don't
It
run into him though, do you? I mean,
No, thankfully we live in different parts of Jersey, and
oh,
so that's a good thing. I can certainly think about maybe some central spots in regard to where we might run into in regard to the
okay.
middle of New Jersey, but no, I have not run into him, and I really wish him the best. It's just unfortunate, that it ended the way it did. And but I think that this was again, a learning for me and some growth in regard to sort of kind of stepping out in regard to, what my pattern has been and so forth. I just know that, as I said, when I think about meeting somebody, I just want somebody who is just really comfortable with themselves.
Right.
You ain't got to impress me. I listen, I don't need to know what you drive. I don't need to know where you live. As long as you can support that and you are safe in regard to that, and it's legal. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm cool
And
with
you're
that.
able to take care of yourself and
Right.
like, yeah.
Right. Yeah, but so I
Yeah.
don't need to, I don't need, I've never been one in regard to getting hung up in what somebody does or what they have, or sort of kind of what I've tried to do is to work on myself to make sure that there's a level of comfort in
Yeah.
regard to what I have and
That's
and
right.
what I, certainly whether it's in education or whether it's finances or so forth. And so for me, that's my comfort. And I always say, it that's just the type of person I'm looking for in regard to. And the other thing is just somebody who is just nice. Like if you got to be, if you can't communicate without reading or being shady or these, or just being unkind to people, like I'm just over it. It was cute back in the day when we were
Right.
enrolled in the program.
That's right.
When we filled out our applications and they
That's
and they
right.
enrolled us and we were like running
We've
around like,
graduated.
right, yeah, right. We done graduated, we done moved on.
Right.
And so like I'm just not even feeling the same way
I'm
now.
not
Like,
interested. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, save it, save it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm not even really interested in being a part of conversations where people are talking about other people. Like, what I've discovered, I when people are sitting talking about external stuff, like I'm more interested in these kinds of dialogues versus like, look at what she has on, or that kind of stuff is kind of like, been there, done
Right,
that,
been
and
there, did
that's
it, right.
not, yeah, it's not
Yeah,
productive. um and like you and I, we have lots of, you know, tiki moments, I would say. But it just at it's like it's kind of like my mom said to me about when you're older and you're reading someone or whatever, it's just not attractive anymore because you're supposed to be wiser, you're supposed to carry yourself differently, and it's not okay. Like it's just
yeah,
not,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And
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 that's
as you
not to say I'm gonna be a doormat and let you just, say anything to me.
right,
But I'm not. You have to really, really provoke me in order to get that out of me. Um,
right. Yeah,
and
I
when
don't
you get
I
it, you
just
probably really get it.
I don't think I agree with you. I don't think it's attractive. I don't, I'm not I don't want to put myself in the circle of that.
Yeah,
Because I think that it is energy that is just not something that I just want around me or that I even want to be influenced by. I don't participate in it.
yeah,
And again, it isn't to say that I haven't, but at this stage in my life, it just serves no purpose.
yeah. I mean, I'm more quick to make fun of myself than I am anybody else. Like,
Right,
it's
right,
because of all. I mean, I have a lot more stories about myself being stupid than people
right.
around
Me
talk
dressing
about.
horrible or thinking or asking myself, what were you thinking in regard to
Right.
wearing it? You know. Uh,
Exactly.
right. I don't need your help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like you can keep that to yourself. Y'all can kiki about it.
Right.
I said to someone the other day, and it had to do with a family issue. And I know maybe this is a bit shady in regard to what I'm going to say. But I think how I came to this was really a matter of enlightenment and maturity. And I said it was actually a conversation I had with my sister, and we were talking about a family dynamic and somebody wanting to, just being angry and so forth. And I said to her, we were talking about somebody who said that they want to cuss somebody out, and I thought about reading. And somebody who wants to read you, or somebody's gonna read you, or something. And so I've come to this point in my life where I'm like, you can't read me, you
Right.
can't cuss me out.
Yeah.
And I've come to understand, that The only way that you can read me and for it to matter is because I am concerned about what you're saying, because
Right.
what you say matters,
Right.
or has importance. And the same thing in regard to when you're saying that somebody's going to cut you out and they angry and so forth, I don't even have to give that back. I have to understand for myself, what does this mean? What is the value in this in regard to this person saying or
And where
doing
is it
this?
coming from?
And
Like, what's
exactly, and where is it coming
behind?
from? Right. What's
Yeah.
really what's behind this? And so
Yeah.
at this point in my life, it's really helped me to understand that, as I said, if you want to be snide and sarcastic and so forth, for me, it just has no purpose. And
Yeah.
so if that is who you are and that's who you show up to be, then knock
Right.
yourself
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I understand, like to your point, I understand that all of that energy comes from insecurity and, is fear really. Like, and so I'm not really, I can sit in silence and allow people to say that. And I can be completely stoic. Um, and there's a time limit on it, obviously, but
Right, 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 right.
yeah, but I can just be stoic and just sit there and go, okay, like, because you're entitled to think whatever you think, but it has no bearing on me really. Like, it's not going to make me lose sleep at night. It's not going to change anything in my world or in my existence. So have at it. Like, I'm
Right.
good.
Right. And I
Um,
think it's those people who are in your circle or who you allow to come in your circle. And when they have those moments with you,
yeah,
where you sort of kind of sit back and you say, wait a minute, this is pretty powerful. This is coming from a place.
yes,
And even if it is anger or even if it's, whatever emotion, you are able to really process it differently in regard
that's
to
right.
saying, wait a minute, this matters.
It
Uh,
causes me to self-reflect
mhm,
and give pause to, like, wait, I'm not showing up as the person I think I am. Like,
mhm.
I'm doing something's wrong. There's a disconnect somewhere because I think I'm this one person, but they're telling me something different, or at least in this situation or what have you, I've treated them in a way that is not aligned with how I think I perceive myself to be.
Right, right. And I think that that's when I think about that, I think that that's what I'm looking for in regard to as I meet people and I crack open that door is to allow them into that space.
Yeah,
And to hold them of value in that space rather than, I've just never been one who just opens up the door for everybody. My mother used to say, not everybody is your friend.
yeah,
And not
yeah.
everybody's your friend. And so I've always just held that really deep and safe. And so my circles have always been rather small.
Somebody sent me a text message yesterday that said, "Aren't you friends with such and such?" And I said, "Actually, I know him. We're not friends though." Because
Right,
I'm very clear, and I don't mean that in a shady
right,
way.
right, right,
She sent me back a ha ha, and I was just like, I'm not even being
right.
funny. Like, I'm being, because once upon a time, I think people thought we were friends, and I probably thought we were friends, but life has shown me we're not friends, and
Mhm.
that's okay. Like, I'm clearly okay with it. He, from what I understand from other friends of ours, he's not so okay. He doesn't understand, whereas he's never reached out to me to ask me. So, from my perspective, he doesn't really want to know.
Right,
So, and that's fine, like, because people don't necessarily want to know some things. They just want to tell themselves a story. And I don't even care about being the villain in the story. Because I'm very clear about, we're not friends. I know you. You're not somebody I dislike. You're just not somebody I like. Like, if you were stranded on the side of the road, I would totally help you because I have respect for the friendship we once had. And I also respect human people in general. But
right.
yeah, it's like what you were saying before about when you get older, there's a clarity that comes with, who you are and how you see yourself and all the things that you can deal with and you can't. And I think I said to you the other day, like, I'm always amazed at how I can have a conversation and the words just instantly come to me, because that always wasn't the case for me. I always felt very socially awkward in situations, and it was because I wasn't really comfortable in my skin, and now I just am. Like, I don't know when that happened. I just woke up one day and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm good. Like,
Mhm,
I feel comfortable in rooms. I still feel socially awkward. Um, and I said this to someone that I know that's a lot younger than us, and because he was telling me about how he felt like when he was in high school and all this kind of stuff, and I said, I'm gonna tell you like that it never goes away. It never go like it diminishes because you do feel more comfortable in your skin as you get older, but the feeling of all that never goes away. Like it's
mhm.
still looming somewhere in me, and it shows up at the oddest times just because I'm triggered by something or something's happening that reminds me of an experience, and I instantly can tap into those feelings of the inadequacies I felt when I was in high school or middle school or whatever. um, but yeah, I think that because I'm a lot more comfortable with who I am, I can advocate for myself because I have my voice and I know how to use it, and I have the words to associate with my feelings. When I was a kid, I didn't have those words. I didn't even have a voice. I was too busy like trying to figure it all out. Like, you're
Right.
black, you're gay, you're in this white neighborhood. Like, it's all these variables that you are completely not prepared for.
You're right. You're thrown. It's interesting because um to your point, I think what happens is you're right. You become more in tune with it. You understand it. You develop these strategies, but you still have these moments. And so I could think a couple of weeks ago that I would happen to be out, and again, the strategies are in play. I'm socializing in a setting and so forth, and then I just have these moments in which, and I described this to a friend of mine, in which I become inward.
Mm-hmm.
I become inward, and then I'm like sort of kind of struggling in regard to like, okay, so let me think about how to start this conversation or to keep the conversation going. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, see, you should have stayed home. See, if you had stayed home, you wouldn't have to be. And so there's all these many different things that are going on in your head. And certainly to your point, I think as you are growing up, there are all of these different things that you are dealing with in regard to trying to understand who you are, and what you're not,
Right. Yeah.
and what you're not. Oftentimes, I think what you're struggling to do is you just sort of kind of accept these different things, thinking that this is who you are, and then only to figure out, like, wait a minute, no, 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 that just like I only went with the status quo or what the
Right.
expectation was, and so forth. And so I think as you become older, you develop more clarity around that,
Right.
and you are able to sort of kind of think about, where does this fit into in regard to how you see yourself. But I think it doesn't stop, as you said. I still sit here, and struggle in regard to, again, defining myself.
Yeah.
You- Defining myself.
And
Who am I?
And I think, like, to your point, like, if you don't define yourself, other people will do
Well,
it for you. And I think that's why I don't like people getting too comfortable with me because they're trying to put me in some sort of box and define me. And I don't want that. Like, I decide who I am. Like, you don't get to create a story about me, or any of that stuff. I make those decisions. And I think that's why I don't like a lot of people when people try to put labels on me, like, because it's not okay with me. Like, I don't like it. I don't like that people sit around. It's triggering for me because as a child, people used to do that to me. And when I say a child, like, I mean like 8, 9, 10. People adults were speculating about my sexuality, and so it triggers me when people want to say, well, Scott is this or Scott is that. And it's like, no, fuck off. Scott is who Scott tells you Scott is, or
right,
shows you. I show you who I am. You
right.
don't get to tell me who I
Right.
am.
It's
So
interesting in regard to how we have those like experiences,
yeah,
in regard to, and the problem with that is that, again, you're still continuing through the lifespan, and don't have the opportunity to understand this, to really understand, like, why are people saying this when you're still a child, and
yeah,
how it carries with you into adulthood, and
yeah,
how it shows up in different ways in regard to, again, you wanting to, control the narrative in regard to what you project out,
Yeah.
and not having people so comfortable in regard to them deciding that they can take the liberties. My feeling is, child, knock yourself out and you can talk about me however you want and you can say whatever you want. I think for me is when I let you in and you take the liberties to do that,
Yeah.
then I question myself in regard to saying, wait a minute, did I sort of kind of, why did I do this? Or
Yeah.
why did I not vet this person, or did I miss something here, and so forth. And so I too I'm rather guarded and very measured in regard to, how I kind of get to know people.
Yeah. And I don't, it's difficult as particularly as it relates to getting to know someone. Like it's a lot. It just puts one more hurdle in the race, and it's kind of like, I mean, we'll get there, I guess. Who knows?
Right. I
Um,
mean, it's funny, you ever meet somebody who, and this happened to me, so I met somebody else afterwards, and from a social media app. And I'm so tongue tied today. And this person was nice, but just gave so much of their life story. And so I don't know if this ever happens to you,
yeah,
but I'm sitting and I'm thinking to myself, this person is just talking about themselves. And while it's engaging and while I want to know about this person, I don't need to know this now.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I don't need to know, I don't need to know, like, I was just trying to think of like some good ones. Um, I don't need to know, like, this is how much you getting for your retirement in regard to there. Or I don't need to know, that this is how much your utilities were and you thought it was best for you. We're just not at that point of time in order for us to sort of kind of get into it. And even so, I'm not even sure that I would even have those conversations with you. And so for me, when you were just saying about, the process of getting to know somebody, and I said about measured, I'm always thinking about what is appropriate in regard to what I want to share. Like
yeah.
I'm not pulling out, my
Your
bank
credit
statement,
score,
right?
right?
My
I mean,
credit
yeah,
score. Like I don't, I don't need to know. I don't.
right.
While my hope is that, that you do have a score, in that it
Above
is,
400, please.
yeah, well, I'd probably say even a little higher than that. But that it is adequate in order for you to live life,
Yeah,
to how you see as being fulfilled.
yeah.
Um, I don't need to know those details right then and there. And so for me, as I said, it's very measured in regard to me getting to know people. I'm like, I don't need to sit down and I don't need to tell you that I do this, or here's where I work, or here's my title, or here's who reports it to me. Like all of that business is like, yo, like keep that
I
to
left that at
yourself.
the right. I'm fast. So, okay, so two things. I literally yesterday I had a conversation with a friend of mine who called me and he was telling me about a date he went on and how the guy was really nice, but he revealed too much about himself. It was the first date. Now, in the first date, the guy told my friend that he was a recovering sex addict, that he had been married for 23 years, that he was HIV positive, that he only likes black men. He was a white guy. He only likes black men. And I mean, just all of this stuff. And I was just, and so my friend asked me, he was like, "Don't you think that's too much to be sharing?" I was like, "On the first date? Fuck yeah. Like, what? Like, I would never." So, first of all, you have told me that you're a recovering sex addict. Okay, fine. Like, we all have shit, right? But you were married for 23 years. So, for me, right off the bat, I know that. So, and he revealed the fact that he was out here having sex with men while he was married. And I was like, so he exposed his wife to HIV. All of these things that and I don't even know this person, but all of this is swirling around in my head. Like, you have no integrity, you have no honesty. Like, it's like all of this stuff that, from my perspective, maybe is a little bit judgmental, but it speaks to already we have different values. And even if you're not the same person, I don't know that I could trust that you wouldn't be the same person, because does does the fact, if you don't have any integrity and you're in the same age, you're in your 50s like we are, and do you all of a sudden just wake up one day and decide that you have integrity and I'm going to be a person of integrity? I don't know that it works like that. Does it?
Right. No, 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 I agree with you. I think,
Like it was way, when my friend told me, I was like, that's way too much to reveal on a first date. But then on the flip side of that, I'm kind of like, do you want to date someone like that 6 months and have that slowly revealed to you? Maybe. Like,
I think that, I agree with you. I think that you struggle with, when to tell anybody anything. And
yeah,
certainly I think that, on a first date, it is really about, again, that surface and really looking at compatibility. I
yeah,
think that as you are going through, and spending more time with this individual, I think it's important to start again, sort of kind of peeling back the layers and
yeah,
really talking about who you are and what your life experiences have been, and then also begin to talk about, sort of kind of where you've had those struggles, or things that are maybe important to somebody in regard to them making a decision as to whether they want to continue on this process of getting to know you. And so I'm a firm believer in that. But I don't believe in, I'm not gonna sit here and pull out everything and give it to you in a nice little fold on our first date and be like, okay,
like some of that, like I don't know. I mean, clearly you probably need to know that he was married. Clearly, the reasons why you're divorced, and that I like black men exclusively, and all of this other stuff, like you might have needed to hold on to that for a minute. Like, um I don't know. And I don't, and I said to my friend, it's like, I don't think that this makes him a bad person. I don't even think it makes him, like, it just makes him a flawed person, and it makes him a person whose value system doesn't match up with my value system. Like, I don't, I don't understand how someone, if you want to harm yourself, go for it. Like I clearly have had a suicide attempt. My suicide attempt is not going to bring physical harm to anyone else. Emotionally, probably, if I had succeeded, but to put someone else's life at risk for the enjoyment of your own life, like I have a problem with that.
right.
Like
No, no, I agree. I
that's
agree.
not okay for me. And I don't think that, and if I'm being judgmental, then okay. But I don't think that when you put someone else in physical danger, that's problematic for me.
Mhm,
Um
mhm, mhm.
and and granted, like if he's in an addiction program or whatever, I'm sure he has had to atone for that, and maybe by revealing that at on his first date, that's his way of atoning, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know anything about 12-step programs, but that might be a part of it. I guess. I'm not sure. I don't understand why you would just be that revealing. Um
Maybe it's a way of, I mean, certainly to the point that you were saying about, recovery and atonement and so forth. And maybe it's a way to sort of kind of just get everything out on the table. And if this person is gonna, say they're
yeah,
not interested, at least I put everything out there. And so that, I can applaud, the honesty and so forth.
yeah,
But
I get that.
I agree with you. I think that I am
A
not one.
balance somewhere in it. Like
Right. There needs to be right, right,
yeah.
right. Just I don't need to know all of that up front.
Oh my God.
That's just too much for me to process, too much for me
Like
to
he may as well
reconcile.
have brought his bank statements and three references. Like
Right, 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 right.
like
Right.
that's a lot. Like it's a
Mhm.
lot to just, show up on your first day. Like I would, if I was telling my friend, like had I been on that first day, I would have come home exhausted from listening to all of that. Like,
Right,
just,
right.
like just to, because you have something in mind, like going out on a first date, it should be fun and very casual and light. and then you just unload all this heavy stuff on me, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? What am I supposed
Right.
to do with this?
Right, right. Let me get to less ordering dessert or something.
Right?
I
Yeah,
agree. I think your initial reaction, or I should say your interaction with an individual should be fun. It should be light. It should be about, again, finding what those similarities are, what makes you laugh at the same things,
yeah,
and that is sort of kind of what, gets you hooked. And
right,
then you can begin to talk about, again, life,
yeah,
about life experiences and what the challenges have been, and then reconcile, is this something that you're looking for, or maybe it's something that you're not looking for, and I can respect that. And so, but to dump that, you're right, it's just too much. I'm like,
right,
what?
yeah.
It's exhausting. I can't even process the difficulties in my own life.
I'm
Now you've just
honestly
done
now I
this.
gotta process
Right
yours.
now, I got to process it, and it was only one date.
Yeah,
It was only one date. I'm like, keep that.
and
But
the next
what's
day,
interesting? What's interesting is that there may have been a time in which, in similar situations in which we have gotten a lot of information about an individual, and we have chosen to ignore it because we were just so interested in this
yeah,
individual,
because we
whether
were
how they
like,
look or the space.
tell me
Right.
more.
Right, 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 right. Exactly, right. But you have no job, you have no money. Yeah, sure, no problem.
Right, but you're so cute.
Right, right. Yeah. Now it's like, what, I'm sorry. I just this is too heavy for me. I can't do that. I
You're
can't.
55 and you have $100 in your checking. Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I don't know, I don't know what to tell you. Good luck with that. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're figuring that out. You know.
Well, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not. That's me. That's my fan. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. That's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this has been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully the people watching have enjoyed it. I hope they comment and, and give us feedback. And I hope we can have more of these conversations because
Oh, yes.
I think like for me, I just like I want people to see that there's normalcy in our community, and I'm not using that word to say that people that aren't like us aren't normal, but I'm saying that to say that um they're just everyday people that you're standing next to that are living life just like everyone else, like struggles and being single and problems and just whatever, like um and we're having the same conversations because I think that's the parallel, like everybody's having these conversations about getting older and dating and being single and having going out on dates and revealing too much and what to do with that, and or telling your own stuff, like yeah, it's a lot.
I said this to you yesterday, when we were talking, and I said, and we really had a good conversation in the sense that I said, I just need to say this to someone. I can say this to
Yeah,
you because it's in a safe space.
yeah,
And here is what I had been feeling.
yeah,
And one of the things that we talked about was, and I said, sometimes I feel like I'm the only person who's sort of kind of feeling this.
yeah,
And I'm just going through, the everyday, getting up and going to work and doing all these things and stuff like that, and coming home exhausted and still having these feelings. And one of the things you said is that often, well, no, there are other people who have these thoughts. I had the same thoughts
yeah.
and feelings and so forth, but we're probably not sharing them. And I think that is where, I wish things were a little different in regard to our community, in which, as a collective, we found that space in order to be able to share, some of these thoughts and some of these ideas and these challenges that we're facing. Because sometimes when you're at home and you're going through life, you just feel like it's only you.
Well, and I also think we don't talk about it, particularly in our generation, because we grew up with the mindset of what goes on in our house stays in
How's you?
our
Right,
house.
right, right, right.
And so we weren't trained to talk about things outside of our own house.
Hmm.
Even outside of our, like for me, in my family, everything was the perception was everything is fine. Like we still don't even talk about stuff. Like people with even within my family, the perception is everything's great. Like, you know, and I'm like, what the fuck? What the hell? Where am I? Like, no. So, um, and you know, and I guess like it's different. So, and I am totally against the grain on that because I don't believe in that. That's not my value system. Like, I'm not signing up for that. So, because that's
Right, right,
so,
right.
and you know, like there's a respect for elders you're supposed to have. And I try to be mindful of my respect, but when they get around and start talking about that stuff that is just nonsensical and total bullshit, I'm like, that's some bullshit. And I say that. And so, but then I have to get up and leave the room because it's like, I'm not here for that. So, and I say all that to say, like, because we're at this age, and I think most people in our generation grew up in a similar fashion of what goes on in our house stays in our house. We don't talk to even close friends about what's going on in our house just because that's how we were conditioned. Um, and you know, and at some point you just have to decide that we're going to talk about it because you know I believe, and I said this to you the other day on the phone, like other cultures, and I was talking about other people. They are out here talking about everything. They're talking about credit scores. They're talking about you know the interest rates they pay on their credit cards. They're talking about how to get a better interest rate, how to get a better car, you know, whatever the case may be. And they're sharing information, and that's how you move forward in life. Like that's how you learn and you learn to do better and be better. And that's my hope for this kind of stuff, just because hopefully people will see how you and I talk and how I speak with Wendell and how I speak with Craig and everybody else in my life, and they will start having these kinds of conversations because it's okay. Like everybody's struggling in some
Mhm,
way, shape, or form.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
all right. Well, I appreciate you, Lance. I appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to jump on here and have this talk with me. And I hope we can talk again soon.
Of
And
course.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
Good night.